So later this week, a three-judge panel at the International Criminal Court, which, by the way, Israel is not a member of, is supposed to rule on ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan's determination that he wishes to issue arrest warrants against Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Initially, when he announced that this was his intention on May 20th, he also announced that he intended to issue arrest warrants against Hamas leaders, Yahya Sinwar, Ismail Haniyeh, and Mohammed Def. All of those, of course, have been eliminated in counter-terror raids against them by Israel, most recently Yahya Sinwar. But since he can't arrest any Hamas leaders, what he really wants to do is the only thing that he ever wanted to do, which is to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. And by the way, when we're saying that parenthetically, we should note that the international arrest warrants that he issued against the Hamas terrorists were done sort of as a way to gloss over and, of course, make moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas. Hamas, a genocidal terrorist organization that committed a one-day genocide against Israel and its citizens on October 7th and is covenantally bound to the annihilation of the Jewish people, the physical annihilation of the Jewish people and of the Jewish state. This genocidal terrorist organization was basically a fig leaf, right, for going after the main culprit, which is the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the state of Israel, and accusing us of the crimes that they did commit and seek to continue to commit against Israel. So that was what Karim Khan did. It was shocking and appalling then, and it still is now, and now that, he thinks that he's going to be issuing these arrest warrants. But it works out, and this came out on Sunday morning, October 20th in the Daily Mail, and also in another new X account called ICC Leaks, which I'll get to in a second. So they reported that around the same time, almost exactly the same time, that Karim Khan decided that he was going to issue these arrest warrants against Israel, and by the way, maybe against some Hamas terrorists, he was told that a female employee of the ICC, his subordinate, was accusing him of sexually harassing her at an overseas trip for official business that she and he were both members of the delegation, and that he both physically and verbally sexually harassed her. So she had told this to the authorities, the relevant authorities at the ICC, and then after she submitted her allegation on May 5th, one of the members of either his office or of the office that's in charge of, checking these things out, came to him and he informed him of the allegations against him. And I was talking to sources about this today after the initial reports came out, and they told me that actually one of the notable things about that meeting where the ICC official told Karim Khan that this woman, whose initials are SN, was accusing him of sexually harassing her, is that when he was told that allegations of sexual harassment had been made against him, he asked whether they were made by a man or a woman. And then after he was told, he said, well, is there video? So, I mean, this doesn't speak very well of the married father of two. At any rate, those were his alleged responses, according to my sources. And then once he found out about this, and it took a while, stories started coming out, or sources inside of the prosecutor's office started telling people in Israel, people in the United States, that Karim Khan suddenly has decided that he wants to ASAP issue arrest warrants against Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant. And here one of the interesting things is that generally speaking, the prosecutor doesn't announce his intentions, but rather the three-judge panel issues the arrest warrant. So it's not that you're telling people ahead of time that this is your intention, but rather you take your intention and you put it into a brief, which you present to the three-judge panel, and then they make a decision about whether or not to act on your brief. But here in this case, on May 20th, Khan announced that he intended to issue these arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant, and by the way, of course, because, Hamas and all that, also against Sinwar and Haniyeh and Def. So That was what happened in May, and you know the confluence of events. First the woman makes this allegation against him, and then he's told about it, and then the stories start coming to Israel that he intends to issue these arrest warrants or request the issuance of these arrest warrants from the ICC judges. So that was in May. And also in May, the same day that he announced his intention to issue these arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant, he canceled what was supposed to be a fact-finding mission to come to Israel and speak to whomever he was supposed to speak to in the Justice Ministry or wherever. And he had been telling U.S. senators who had been talking to him about this for months ahead of time that, yes, he understood that there's a problem because Israel has its own independent judiciary and its own independent prosecution, and therefore, you know, there's no argument that the ICC has to be adjudicating this claim against Israeli leaders at all, because it should be going through the Israeli justice system and not going through the ICC, which is a court that actually doesn't have any jurisdiction against Israel because Israel isn't a member of the International Criminal Court, and we never provided them with jurisdiction over us on anything, so that they don't have a legal claim to jurisdiction. Israel has an independent judiciary and an independent state prosecution. And by the way, there's no proof whatsoever that any crime occurred or that the crime alleged that is alleged against Netanyahu and Gallant of deliberately starving Gazans ever occurred, because the Gazans get a higher than average caloric take every day. But all the same, they were making these allegations. The international human rights groups were making these allegations based on no proof, based on allegations that they were receiving from Hamas and Hamas puppet groups like UNRWA, and they were relaying them to the ICC along with Hamas and Hamas's diplomatic arm, the Palestinian Authority. So it was all propaganda. This is just a pure propaganda ploy, and if there was a real problem, then Israel would be investigating it. So he had all the same, and he was supposed to come to Israel, and the assumption of the U.S. senators who had been talking with him was that he was going to have to drop the case, that he was going to come to Israel, and he would see that this is absurd, and that he doesn't have jurisdiction, and he would go away, and he would leave Israel alone. But instead, he canceled the trip, and he announced the arrest warrants the same day, and this is under the shadow of these sexual harassment allegations. And so the Daily Mail, in its story about it, it goes through and says that the woman decided that she didn't want to go forward with the allegations against him for various reasons. And then it says here in the ICC leaks X platform. So they have here details about the matter. At the heart of the matter is a complaint. At the heart of the complaint is a female employee that they call SH, who reported to her colleagues back in April 2024 about a series of sexual harassments made by her boss, Karim Khan, who happens to be one of the most famous figures in the field of international criminal law. The acts were both of physical and psychologically abusive nature. SH has been in contact with others who have known about this kind of behavior in the past and have alerted her. So others had already told her that Karim Khan has a tendency as a penchant for sexually harassing his employees. And according to my sources, those employees come from both sexes. So she knew that he had a past, right? And she started telling her colleagues about what he had done to her in April. Okay. So it says here, it turns out that soon after her boss was personally confronted with the accusations by her work colleagues, so her colleagues were the ones who came to him, according to this, his wife contacted the people involved and tried to stop them from filing an official complaint by means of intimidation and threats. So Mrs. Khan jumped into action, according to this report, and started threatening the people who she had shared the information with and who had confronted Karim Khan and told him that these allegations were being registered against him. So it says here, the boss himself tried to use his authority to prevent the case from being reported to the IOM. The IOM is the, I think, what is it called? The Independent Office of, I don't know, Management. It's some, I'll find out. Here, Independent Oversight Mechanism. So that's the group that's supposed to actually be investigating this sexual harassment complaint against Khan. So it says here that the boss himself tried to use his authority to prevent the case from being reported to the IOM. Both attempts have failed. Senior ICC figures are now aware of the details, including the ICC president, court registrar, head of IOM, and the chief of staff. Continues on. I was also told that after losing faith in the internal process, SH recently filed a personal complaint to the ICC supervising authority. Okay. And then the other thing that they said about this matter was, here, a complaint was filed with the IOM on May 4th. I said May 5th. Sorry, May 4th, 2024, but no action has been taken until today. Why is it always the case that the victim must choose between resigning and keeping her job under a person harassing her? Okay, so here's the thing, right? Why would it be? Because 16 days after she filed her complaint, he said that he was going to arrest Netanyahu. Okay, I think that that's fairly clear. The timing here is crazy because there's no reason that this should have been done on May 20th. There's no reason when he was scheduled to come to Israel, he suddenly drops all of his plans, drops the entire, investigative process. He throws all of the prosecutorial processes that people undergo, like actually investigating the allegations against the people that you're thinking about issuing arrest warrants against. He throws all of that to the seven winds. And the same day, he announces that he intends to issue these arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant. And then both at the time and since, he said, oh, the Mossad is coming after us, the Israelis are coming after us, etc. And, he says even on Saturday night, when it became public that these allegations had been launched against him, he said, this is a moment in which myself and the International Criminal Court are subject to a wide range of attacks and threats. In recent months, my family, including my wife and child, have also been targeted. And it says here, in May, the Guardian newspaper and 2 Israeli-based magazines claimed that Israel has run a 9-year war against the ICC. So here's the thing, right? Pretty sure, just guessing, right, that if Israel had known that a woman in his office was accusing him of sexual harassment, right? And especially given that this is apparently not the first time that employees claim that he has sexually harassed them, right? If Israel had known, Israel probably would have put this out, right? There's no reason for Israel to withhold this information from the public. To the contrary, Israel has every interest in sharing this information as quickly as possible with as many people in the public that it can reach. Because here's this guy who comes after the Prime Minister of Israel, comes after the State of Israel, comes after the Defense Minister of the State of Israel, right? Basically, on the heels of finding out that this woman who works for him is accusing him of sexually harassing her, both verbally and physically, right? And suddenly, poof, right? So that was in May, and now we're in October. So 5 months later, nothing's happened. No investigation, no public scrutiny, no nothing, right? And now on later this week, the 3-judge panel is supposed to rule on whether or not he is going to be allowed to go through with his get-out-of-jail-free card of going after the Jews, going after the Prime Minister, going after the Defense Minister, criminalizing the Jewish state. There's certainly a very large audience that's supportive of such actions, right? But, the question is whether this guy is going to be allowed to get away with it. Is he going to be able to get out of jail free? Literally. His brother just got out of jail, not for free, after serving half of his 18-month sentence. He was an MK in Britain, Imran Khan, and he was jailed for sexually molesting a 15-year-old. Okay, so this is like a family thing, apparently, right? So his brother's career collapses. He was a promising, I think, Tory MP. He was going places, but then boop, he had to sexually molest a child, and that kind of, if you get caught, which God willing you do, that's supposed to ruin your career. And now it works out that this guy who has aspirations to be, I don't know, UN Secretary General or whatever, now it works out that he may be going the same way as his brother has, which is down the drain pipe because he's a sexual predator. All right. So that's what's going on. And here what we're seeing is this confluence, this timing, this crazy timing, right, that you can't disregard, apropos of absolutely nothing, with no investigation, with no jurisdiction, and with no probable, and with no reason, no evidence, no jurisdiction. You're supposed to be coming to Israel in order to make out a fake investigation at least, and you're talking to U.S. senators saying they don't have any reason to worry that you're about to go after Israel, right? So it's possible, that Tony Blinken, George Clooney, his wife, all kinds of people were pressing him, wanted him to go after Israel because that's how this administration flies. That's what they want to do. They want to criminalize Israel. More than that in a second. But, why would he do it? Why would he go forward with this perversion of justice? And the answer is very likely SN, and what she has to say about what he did to her. So let's put that out there. I think it's very important for everybody to be aware of this story.